episode of Musical Chairs with me, Cheer Up Charlie. And today we have the amazing, the wonderful. She was a factory girl, and then she was really, really wicked. And then she said, I just want it to be me and the sky. She's Alice Fearn, everybody! Woo, 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 woo. Hi, Alice. How are you?
Do you know what? I'm all right. I'm, still at home, as we all are, just waiting for everything to open. But I can't complain. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good.
So if you're ready, I'll get right into the questions.
Let's do it.
Was there ever a time when music was not a part of your life? Or did you come out singing and dancing?
Well, dancing, Charlie boy, is not my forte for sure. Okay, so I definitely never came out dancing, nor have I danced since. It's at a very big push that I'm dancing. But singing, I would say, yeah, and music in general was something I did do a lot. Yeah, and but saying that, I don't think musical theatre was in my sight. Not that I didn't love it, but I loved it for so many years, but I never thought it would be something I did. But music was definitely something. I grew up playing the piano, so I did an awful lot of like contemporary music, and I trained in classical piano for a very, very long time. So that's from about like 4 or 5, I think, was when I first started. And then I played like other instruments. I dabbled in other instruments. I played the violin once, which is just terrible because I'm terrible at the violin, and you just sound terrible at the violin until you sound really good. So I was like, no, I can't play that. I also play the harp quite well. So that's another instrument, and I obviously sang as well. So yes, music was very much a part of my life from quite early on. It was the more drama acting side that wasn't, and for sure I just did not dance. I mean, I think I went to ballet like class once, as parents sort of send you to ballet, to see if you like that kind of thing, and I absolutely just hate it. So I never went back.
So did you always know you were following the performing arts route, or was there something else that you loved growing up? Because mine is forensic science, which is totally opposite to presenting and performing.
Oh, but forensic science, that is really exciting to me. I love that kind of stuff, like, and you like the dusting of the fingerprints, and I mean, like, not to go really gross, but I do like a good crime drama. And when they do talk about blood spatter, I'm in love with that. I'm like, God, that's fascinating. So actually I love forensic science, and that is really, really amazing. But I think the only other job I ever quite liked was archaeology. And I did actually think at some point that's what I would do. But I only liked one aspect of archaeology more than any other. And I really liked Egyptian archaeology, like when, like the dusting off and going for the pyramids and finding the mummies. There's so many wonderful things that they find there still, they haven't found for years. And I liked that element of archaeology. But digging up the English countryside and finding, a Viking fork was not what I kind of envisaged. So I sort of knew that was where it could go. So I sort of like dabbled a bit and then disappeared from it, and thought I'd go down a music route. But I actually fell into performing arts, like really just as randomly as it gets. And luckily for me, but yeah, it wasn't on the radar for quite a long time, really.
Well, with crime dramas, have you watched NCIS?
Yes, I love NCIS. I've watched all of them, and I've watched all the the spin-offs as well. Like they've got like all the spin-offs where they're like, some are in New York, Vegas, but when they've done like loads. Oh, I've watched all of them. They're unreal.
Have you watched season 17 though?
Is that the latest one?
That's the latest one.
See, no, I won't have watched that.
My dad got it shipped in from America for me and Mum for Christmas.
Oh, well done, Dad. How do I get it from you? How much do you want? Yeah, it's brilliant. I love forensic science. I think it's so fascinating. And it's so, and I watch a lot of I don't know if you're allowed to watch them, or I watch them on Netflix and stuff, but there are a lot of dramas that will, not dramas, real life documentaries that will go and they'll suddenly start using forensic science on old cases where that wasn't used originally because it wasn't invented yet.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, people's convictions will be completely overturned, and they'll have been in prison for like 30 years, 20 years. But forensic science is what's got them out. And because they can suddenly start analysing way more. It's basically sort of, some people got put in prison by word of mouth, you know, like, oh yeah, I think he did it, you know, and then they put him in prison. Whereas, you know, the forensic science wasn't in place. And that's why I love it, because I'm like, listen, that we can rely on. That's hard evidence that gets people convicted rightly and wrongly, you know, no longer wrongly. So I love it. God, I think totally, now looking back, if I was your age, I'd be totally obsessed with forensic science, like now, because there's also so many dramas that are based around it. It's so super interesting, and I'd probably, that's what I'd be doing. I'd be singing while I did it, Charlie.
Why not? Why not? So you trained at the amazing Mount View School. Do you think that the arts should be accessible to all, regardless of their backgrounds, and how can we help this happen?
Yes, very much so. It should be. I actually tend to think it's unfair that auditions for drama schools are charged, and I think that's a bad practice, because then what it does is, that's an elitism in itself. Like, if you can get, I lived in Cumbria, okay, now if you don't know where Cumbria is like right on the border with Scotland. Now that takes 6.5 hours to come all the way down to London to audition. And on top of that, you've got to pay to audition. So if you're driving all the way down, you've also got to stay over. So that's the petrol money, the time, the hotel fees, and the audition fee just to audition for Mount View. Now, I was very lucky and mum and dad could afford to do it, but that's not everyone. And I don't think that's right. And therein lies an issue. And I think how you change it is you stop that practice, and that becomes something that doesn't happen. Or what you do is you say, there will be almost like open calls, where the college itself travels around the country, and does like open calls, like they do for auditions for musicals. You know, you have open calls. Well, before, you know, COVID, we had like lots of open calls, and I think that's a practice that could start happening maybe a little bit more, and it opens the door to anyone who can't get there, can't find the time to get there, haven't got the means to get there, haven't got the financial ability to get there either and do these auditions. But it will take the colleges to do that. The only way we can do that is the colleges. But also it opens it up, because why do you only want, you know, there are scholarships in place for drama schools, loads and loads of scholarships. I actually wasn't on one, but there are scholarships in place, and they should be going to the best people in the country that they can get, not just the people that came to the audition in London, you know, to their local area. So I actually think it would benefit both sides. It would benefit the people that can't afford to do it or haven't got the time to do it, X, Y, Z, all the things I said before. But it would also benefit the schools, because they would suddenly open up their doors and open up their ability to intake actually really good people that they might never have seen otherwise. Yeah. I would say that it lies firmly at the drama school's doors on those ones. I don't think... I think until they change their policies there, I think it's really unfair to make students audition. Really, really unfair to make students that aren't even in the business yet audition for drama schools, and pay for those auditions. I think that's crazy. Yeah, that's not right.
So do you think the industry has changed a lot since you started out? Obviously, excluding everything having to go online.
Yes, obviously excluding COVID. No one foresaw that.
Shove COVID out the way just for 1 minute.
I don't need it. Let's do that, for goodness sake. Okay, yeah. So I've been in the business since 2005 was when I graduated and went into the industry. I've seen huge changes in that time, and I was very much in the industry when everything started to be based around a TV show. So we had lots of TV shows that were casting that way. So we had something, How Do You Solve a Problem Like Maria was, I think, the first one, where they were finding a Maria for The Sound of Music. Now, then like an array of them followed from there. There was like a Nancy program, Finding Nancy and Finding Oliver. There was like a load of...
I'd Do Anything.
That was it, yeah. So there was like
because I've recently interviewed somebody who won that show.
Have you? Yeah. Now they came and they were like, for like 10 years, they were like a huge, huge thing, these shows. And also on top of that, you had like X Factor, and you had I forgot, like Pop Idols and things like that. You know, you had all these sort of like reality audition-y kind of shows. Now, I think they're twofold, these. I think they're really good and really bad.
Yeah.
And I think what they can do is give people a platform, and give good people a platform, which is unreal, which is what's needed. And it also brings musical theatre and our shows into people's living rooms, which wasn't happening before that. You know, people that maybe didn't like musicals, or maybe didn't ever really get the chance to go to a show or whatever, it brought it to them at their homes, which was absolutely needed. And there is no denying that helps. However, what it does do, and it's a byproduct of it, is that some people get through all these rounds, and they you know, they do these shows, and they haven't trained, and that's fine if they haven't trained. I'm not saying you have to train, but they haven't trained. They're not prepared for the industry in any way. They're also not prepared for fame in any way, which inevitably comes with these shows. And also, and majorly, they're not prepared for the 8 show a week kind of thing that you know, it's really hard, especially if you go into a huge show. And I think that's sometimes a bit of a problem. And I think we underestimated how much it would affect those people that weren't prepared for it. And I think so. And also the other byproduct of those shows was, if that person that won that program then did the show wasn't on because they were ill, that audience therefore thinks they deserve a full refund, because they didn't see the person they saw win the show play the role. And as we know in theatre, as you know, there's lots of understudies that are brilliant, that are there waiting for those moments where people can't do that show, and they step up and they do it. And it made audiences rely and depend on those people that they had seen on the TV screen perform those roles. And that took it away from the show. Mm-hmm. You go and see Jesus Christ Superstar, and it should be seeing the spectacle of Jesus Christ Superstar, not who's on for Jesus. It's the piece of theatre should be good enough without it being driven by this one celebrity that you think you've seen on TV, that's the only person in the world that can play it. That's not true. And I think that's a byproduct of what it caused as well. Does one outweigh the other? I don't know. Like, have the benefits outweighed those issues? I don't know. I can't answer that. But
no,
that's
I think it's a bit
of both, isn't it? It's like, you think it's like level. Yeah. I don't really know, but I think that I saw, because I was just in it the whole time. I saw it. I was about 2 years into my career, and for about 10 years, it was all we could see were these issues with celebrity casting or casting quite famous people, and then the byproducts of those problems, you know. I mean, I remember I was on for, so I was in Shrek the Musical, which obviously had Amanda Holden in. Amanda Holden is hugely famous, was famous back then, and is hugely still famous now. And she was playing Princess Fiona. Now, she was, as I recall, I think it was quite early on in the run, she was off and not meant to be off. So she was sick, had been called in sick, I was on. Now, in that show, how it started was I was set behind the curtain as they made the announcement, tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Holden won't be performing. The role of Princess Fiona will be played by Alice Fearn. And I heard the audience boo, like literally all collectively boo. And luckily, I'm a strong enough person to go, okay, I'll prove you all wrong. And if you're walking out, you're going to regret it. However, what that can do is cause huge, like if I hadn't been me, or it had been someone else who couldn't cope with that, that's a scar for life. You know, like you can't get rid of that. That's all you remember, is when you got booed by an entire 2,000-seater audience at the Theatre Royal Drury Lane because you weren't Amanda Holden. And that's the issue, and that's a huge issue with the casting of celebrities, is that the audiences think, well, I've come to see Amanda. You shouldn't have come to see Amanda. You should have come to see Shrek the Musical, and that's the problem. And I've seen that my entire career. And to be fair, I've experienced it firsthand now that I'm a little bit more well known in musical theatre. If I wasn't on, in Wicked, you'd get like lambasted online for it. People would really go, I can't believe I've flown all the way from XYZ and you weren't on tonight. And you either respond and you say, I'm really sorry, but honestly, like, I shouldn't have been on tonight. I feel terrible and I would have sounded terrible. You actually got a much better show out of the standby or the first cover. So you know what I mean? Like, I've experienced it firsthand, and that is a huge problem in the industry that I have seen over the years develop, because we are casting well-known people.
Yeah. So, what was it like the day you finally got your big break in The Woman in White? And do you remember the call?
I really do. Yeah, I don't remember every job I've ever got. Well, actually, I think I might be able to remember every job I've ever got, actually, got the yes to. But that one, obviously, you can't forget it. I was still in drama school when I was auditioning for Women in White, and it was in my final year. And
wow.
I know, so I was so super lucky. And I'd been auditioning for this role, and I was like, I don't know. And on top of it, I didn't think I was particularly right for it. It was this sort of like young, juvenile, very sweet, very innocent girl that was a top soprano. And I was like, I just don't think that's me. But okay, they're still there. I get it. I'm getting through the rounds. So I was doing my best. And I had my final, and I hadn't enjoyed my final for Women in White. It was really hard. I was super stressed. It was at this big building that Angela Webber and the Really Useful Group had used. I don't know if they have it anymore, in central London, because we're talking 16 years ago now. So I had this final, and I was so nervous, and Angela Webber was there, as was Trevor Nunn, the director, the original director of Les Mis. Like all these major names were there. And it was just really daunting when it's your first sort of thing and you're still in drama school. So I was super, super nervous. And I remember getting like my, all these notes from Trevor, and I just thought, I don't think I did any of them. And so I came out the audition, and I was like, well, do you know what? An amazing experience and something I will learn from. I'm still in drama school. And it wasn't that long after.
You basically already resigned and gone, I'm not getting this role.
Oh, I got, 100%. That's not mine. But you know what? What a great experience. Oh yeah, I didn't think I got it. And I was in the car no more than about 3 days later, and my agent called me. And it was at that time where, like when your agent calls you, it is like your heart stops. And I had a special ringtone for my agent as well. And so I had to pull over and stop the car. And I answered the phone really quickly because I was eager. And I went, hello, hello, hello. And he just went, hi, darling, just needed to update you on Women in White. Now, this is what my agent used to do. And most agents do this. They sort of play it down quite a lot.
Mine does that. She's like, so I've got you this. So what do you think?
Yeah.
Is it like...
So they sort of like, so they sort of make you feel like you're like they're setting you up for a no. And he went, so yeah, I'm updating you. And I was like, oh, okay, I haven't got it. And he was like, yeah, they've come back, and congratulations for making your West End debut in Women in White. And I just went, and I just squealed and cried. And I went, can I call you back and call my mum first? And then I'll call you back and find out the details. Because I had to call my mum and dad and say, I got it. I booked the job. I remember had called my mum and dad loads to say, Angela Webb was in my audition. Like like all these amazing things. And so, yeah, I will never forget it because it was huge. And I'll never forget also the first day of the rehearsals, because I was sitting there in the room. I was super early, and I was there, and this is my first job. And Dean Chisnell, who is currently Valjean on the tour of Les Mis, it was also his first job. We had met. We were like West End debuts and like first job people, so we were like really keen. And in walked Ruthie Henschel, who I had watched since I was a babe, right, in musical theatre. She walked in, and I went silent and just frozen. And she just went, hi guys, is this the Women in White rehearsals? And I was like, yeah. And she just went, hi, I'm Ruthie, and walked in. And all I could say as she was walking away was, I know, and it was just one of those amazing jobs. Yeah.
I know.
I know you are. I've watched you for years, be really successful. You've inspired me for many years. So you'll never forget that first phone call. And to be honest, you don't forget many of your phone calls. They're really always they're always the ones that obviously you forget the nose and you forget sometimes those ones and you let them bypass. You have to put them aside. But the yeses, they're always so amazing. You always feel so good. So you always know where you are when you got them.
Yeah. So you've played roles that some people will only ever dream of, including being in Les Mis, the most famous Green Witch in Wicked, and my absolute favourite musical ever, Come From Away. And you've also sang on so many soundtracks, including Mamma Mia, Sweeney Todd, and How to Train Your Dragon. But which of these roles has really stood out to you the most?
Oh God, it's such a hard question to answer. I actually see I've got so many different ones that are in like my top sort of like 3, 4, you know, that I sort of always go, God, I love that. I absolutely adored Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, because it's very much my humor, and it was a film I'd like watched when I was younger, and it was a musical because it was on Broadway many years before it came here, and it was a musical and a soundtrack I'd listened to and gone, oh my God, that is such a brilliant musical, I wish it would come here. So to do that and finally do that was a big achievement, because it was something that I'd listened to for a long time. A huge show was doing Nancy and Oliver at the Watermill. Like I you know, again, it's a role that you've grown up listening to in that film, the iconic film, watching the film every Christmas, you know, and then finally getting the chance to sing As Long As He Needs Me, you know, is just like immense. But I would be stupid to not say that in terms of the biggest one of the biggest roles of my life, in terms of, and also in the terms of actually being able to do it and get through the years I did with it and be successful at it, is obviously Elphaba. Because it is very iconic, but it is also really hard work. And I was really proud of myself to achieve, you know, 2.5 years of doing it, and not being just like completely collapsing on the floor dying at the end. You know, I was still able to give it as much gusto as I had 2 years before, and I think I shocked myself, because I'm naturally quite a lazy person, Charlie, and you know, to be able to do that role 8 times a week for 2.5 years is just massive. You know, I just can't believe I managed to achieve that, and to sing it, you know, and to be successful at it, because so many people have come before you in those roles. So you have to make sure you found your own, you know, truth in it, and you find your own way with it, and you're proud of your interpretation of her, and not copy anyone, essentially. You know, you don't want to, you know, and you don't want people to go, oh, she's not as good as them. You know, you want them to go, do you know what, she's a great Elphaba, and that's what you want. And so to sort of, and I feel like I achieved those things. So I would be stupid to not put that at number 1 for so many reasons. It will always be one of the most iconic roles for a woman to play in musical theatre, and the fact that I got to do it, and I got to do it at, you know, such a great time in my career and enjoy it, I think I'm very, very blessed with that.